Oh my goodness.
I think we'll go ahead with the program for this evening. If I can have your attention.
Sorry, we were discussing.
Okay, we're going to enjoy some old things tonight, besides each other anyway.
It's nice to count yourself in.
So we're Diane has put this together tonight for sharing our heirlooms that have come down through the family. And I would like to ask that I be allowed to photograph them if you would allow me to do that, because now we are into making videos of the programs. I would like to have the still pictures to insert into that video. So, okay, Dan?
Okay, I'm going to get started on this, and I'm going to need a couple of people. Brenda and Diane, would you help hold this quilt for me and open it up so it can be seen? I don't think we need to open any more now. It's the same. Yeah, that's fine, thank you, but I thought that way you might tighten it up just a step a little further apart so they can get a picture of it. Yeah, Brenda,
Get
you
a
step
little
this
higher.
way so it's not.
Tighten it up.
So it's, yeah, you can show your faces.
Well, what you want to do because it's your.
Oh, okay. All right. There's more story with this than what I'm able to tell you tonight, because the little note that was in the Ziploc bag apparently didn't get put back in it the last time, and I can't remember all the history on this. What I can tell you is the pieces for this were in my mother's linen closet in our original house for years, and she was always going to put it together. Now these came from her mother, which it actually was her father's side, which was the Matlock side of the family. And this one intrigued me the most because it wasn't put together, and it was the oldest of the ones I've got. And some of my older ones are in the 1800s, so I mean, the pieces are old. However, I didn't get this. Was not the one that inherited this. I got the put together quilt, and my sister, who is a wonderful seamstress, inherited it. But she had many, many other projects and never got to it. But when she died a few years ago, lo and behold, my niece decided I should have it. So I got the pieces. Well, I have never been a big fan of stitchery because I have vision problems when I do little tiny stitches. And I know you need little tiny stitches to do that. And yeah, after about a foot of them, I'm done for our day. And I thought, and I wanted this to be done by somebody that was really good too. Somebody that was used to it. So I had Carla Ackerman put that together because I think Carla does good work and I knew her, and so Carla put that together for me a couple of years ago. Now there is something written on it. It says to Helen. Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. It was on the quilt itself. I didn't remember. All right. It was on the quilt block, but it didn't show when I looked. Oh, gosh, I looked 45 minutes for that piece of paper. It says to Helen from Great-Grandma Matlock, age 88 years old, in 1908.
Oh, wow.
So I was right about the 1800s. But she finished that, and that's pretty much the story that I have to go with it. Unfortunately, it's written on it, and that's to save my day. But I worked on taxes until about 5:15, so I didn't have a whole lot of time when I pulled that out to look further. And I'm glad I didn't because it was on it.
And now you don't have it to worry about anymore.
No, but I'm gonna put a note in it anyway, because since I only get things like that out every couple years, and I've got 5 other quilts that I get out periodically, so I'm tending to forget now who did which one if I don't really think on it. But anyway, thank you for listening, and who wants to be next?
Tonight, because I have to leave early.
Oh, okay. And then we'll just go on around the table, and then we'll pick up the seated people.
Okay, these aren't really, I mean, to me, they're heirlooms. The first one, and I'll pass this around, and then you can have this copy.
Okay.
This is a picture of a claw-leg coffee table that had a removable glass top on it. It belonged to my grandma Priscilla, and I can remember it in her house on Delavan Street when I was a very young girl, maybe 7 or 8 or younger. So the table has got to be around 70-ish some years. Tells how old I am. It's a beautiful piece, and I have asked that my children and or grandchildren please keep it as a wonderful keepsake of my family. Now I use it, I lift the top up and I will put pictures underneath it, or I use it for my spring decorations, Christmas, Halloween, Easter. So if you want to pass it around, and that was my Grandma Pashala's. The next one, I got 2. This is from my dad's side of the family. This would have been from my dad. And the story that goes with these, I don't know if anybody has any idea what they are or where they came from.
Yeah.
But the story is, my dad was walking down the Alton and Chicago Railroad track close to the proposed location of the Lincoln Glass Bottle Company. It was a time in Lincoln and the country when work was needed by many, and he was looking for coal that dropped off the cargo cars that were going down the railroad track to take home. Someone came up to him and asked him if he would like a job. So he got a job working on the factory, helped to build it. He was employed there and retired from there later in life. So the facility began as the Lincoln Glass Bottle Company in 1942. Then it was organized as the Lincoln Container Corporation in 1953. The land for this plant had been owned by Stetson's of Lincoln and had been selected for that particular site because of the railroad and the city's transportation. The city was adequate, friendly, and intelligent labor, natural gas, and other needed utilities and resources. Above all, friendly city with educational, religious, and shipping facilities. The Chamber of Commerce Industrial Committee, Dean Harris, John Gordon, Walter Faster, made available the present North Logan site. In 1953, the payroll was $750,000. This facility, like Stetson's, was served by the Alton and Chicago Railroad, later the GM&O, the Illinois Central Railroad, and the Illinois Traction System. The glass factory is located a couple of blocks, kitty corner northwest of the former Stetson China Company, on the west side of the present Amtrak tracks. As you know, it's not there anymore. I mean, it's been closed down. I think different materials and stuff that make things and stuff. But my dad mostly made, when he was working there, mostly made beer bottles. But these are a few items that he made while he was a machine operator at the glass company. And this is a picture, I can pass that around also, of the glass company back in, I don't know if it has a year. It doesn't say what year, but.
What's the time frame on those, Diane?
Those? Oh, I couldn't tell you. I mean, my dad worked there until,
What years do you think he worked there? That's what I was,
well, he would have started close to 1942, whenever the factory
in the
opened.
1940s. That's
Yeah.
all we want to say.
And he worked there until he retired when he was 62,
Oh.
65 years old.
Okay,
So sometime in that period of time, when he was a machine operator,
right.
he was in a hot area where they actually made the bottles and everything, he would have made them. So I would say maybe in the 60s, 70s or so that he actually made them. I don't have any ideas. All I
Yeah.
know is I got them when they both passed away.
Who would like to be next?
Movie, you're next.
Gary? Okay.
I got some documents, I guess, the original documents, and two of them are in German. I need some help. At any rate, this is my grandfather's confirmation, and if you'll notice, his name is Albert Adolf Heinrich Fries, and as it turned out, he went by Albert D. Fries. So I got out of that, you got a name. Then this is his birth certificate, and I don't want to even hold it up because it falls apart here. And he was born September 10th, 1872. This is my, and this is their, well, you can open it up here, this is their marriage certificate. And I think it's 1898. It's original. And then this is a picture of my grandmother's sewing machine. I didn't bring it in, but it's at home. But it actually, she lived with us and sewed with us, so I know it works.
Is it a Singer?
Yep. Yep. That's all I got.
Let me see it rolled up on. I won't bother that one.
Right.
See the swimming, so I'd be interested in that.
Any volunteers? Kurt?
He came, he's here. He's the old one. What he said he was bringing himself.
So, this is just a plain old Zippo cigarette lighter. And why would I bring this in? You notice embedded in the lighter is a coin on one side, and the other side is the other side of the coin. And his initials are inscribed in it, WWF. But the unique thing is that this coin is not a United States coin. During World War II, my father was in the Army. He was a doctor, and he was sent to India and then over the Himalayas into southern China to a city probably now called Kunming, and he was the head of the hospital there. Anyway, this is an Indian coin, and I assume he got this cigarette lighter as a souvenir when he was passing through India. He was where they sent him where Pakistan is now. Anyway, it says George the 6th King and Emperor, and this is 1 rupee, 1945. So this was before India was an independent nation, while it was still ruled by England. So anyway, that's what I brought in. Yeah.
I'll bring it over, I can get a photo.
I didn't clean it. It's, I don't know how to clean it, so I don't want to damage it.
Don't hold back.
I've had laryngitis, so you'll have to bear with me. But this is 143 years old. It's very heavy plate. Glass plate of the Last Supper. And it was a wedding gift to my great-grandparents. They were married in April 1st of 1880. And so it was passed down to my mom and now me. And I put blue in the background so you could see it better. So anyway, that's my story. Short and sweet.
Sticking to it.
I'm sticking to it.
I have a couple things. Most all of it was my mother's. This was her doll. And she would have been 120 years old this coming September. But I remember this doll from the time I was very little. It was always kept in the linen drawer. It was never out. But back in the 1970s, my brother and sister-in-law at the time took it and had it mounted in this, it's a clock-like thing. And I know that she got it from the McCormicks out of Emden, Illinois, because the tag's still in here, and she always talked about the McCormicks. And she must have gotten it for Christmas, because the tag is here is Christmas greeting, Flora Rubin, Mrs. Will McCormick. It's still in there. And she was a twin, so I imagine my aunt, Dora Rubin, probably got one like it, but I never saw hers. And at the same time, they also got what were called baby rockers, wooden rockers. And McCormick's, I know, gave them those rockers at the time they were born. And I have those rockers now, but they were too big to bring. And I've had them sort of refurbished a little bit, don't have them in my house. And then I bought, this was my mom's, and I imagine my Aunt Dora had one too. A handkerchief box, wood burning type thing, and so I put handkerchiefs in it. Oh, and then I stuck this in here because I thought you'd all like to know this might happen around March the 7th of this year. This was March the 7th of 1931. In the snow at New Holland.
Heaven forbid, but.
Yeah. And then the last thing I got is my mom and dad, around this time, 1933, they went to the World's Fair in Chicago and brought this, and I use this, I have it sitting in one of the rockers. We don't sit on it usually, but, and I had so many other things, but I couldn't bring them all.
All these mentions.
Yeah, we could have another program on this.
Yeah, we usually, every other year or so, we do.
Do you?
I've been going through a bunch of old negatives that my dad took. And he was a photographer, and he did the developing in our basement. He'd block out the windows and make a dark room down there, and his parents let him do it. So I have all these negatives, and holding them up to the light, they're black and white. So holding them up to the light, you really can't see them. So I sent a bunch of them away and had them developed. And especially the Lincoln Lakes one, due to our Brenda Short's lecture on Lincoln Lakes. So I thought I'd send these to her if I can get an address from somebody. So I'll pass them around, but these were taken from the canoe shed that my dad built as a Eagle Scout project, at the first canoe shed at Lincoln Lakes. And this is when Lincoln Lakes opened, and some of the people, I was hoping that somebody, especially Mr. Gossett, would know some of these people so we could put a name and a face. But that some of the pictures are taken from my dad's canoe, which was called Can You Go? That was the name of his canoe. So, and then some of the pictures are of a lady, and before he died, I had him go through some of his pictures and put names on the back of who these people were. And I was hoping that somebody would know who this lady is, because I sent the original pictures to my sister in Louisiana, and now she's caught up with family problems and she can't look up to see who it is. So I went through the Lincolnite, and it's not there either. I couldn't find her picture, but if you know who that lady is, I'd appreciate it. I thought her last name was like Gill, Gill or something easy, and I don't think it was Dorothy, because he knew Dorothy Trapp, or Dorothy Heitman at the time, and he was engaged to Ethelbard Berry, and she dumped him because he was not going to become a doctor. And she was going to marry a man that was going to be a doctor.
I guess that's a good reason.
Yeah. And my dad was at school at U of I, and his professor in chemistry class told him that, Herb, you're not rich enough or smart enough to be a doctor, so give it up. So he told Ethelbard, who he was engaged to, that he was not going to become a doctor. And she said, well, that's it. Here's your ring back. So I've never liked her. I met her later on in life, and she was kind of stuffy.
Who's she married?
She married Dr. Littlejohn in Pana, Illinois.
She married a welding.
No, but she was John Barry's, our coroner at the time. She was John Barry's sister. Everybody knows John Barry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then these other pictures, they need some description. I'm just trying to pick people's brains as to what cemetery this is. And my dad was a scout leader, and he took his whole troop to the U of I game. And he's got a picture of their backs. And then on this one, he wrote the names in the margin. Some guy named Sam and some guy named JP were in his troop. And then he took a
That's nothing
picture.
around here.
He took a picture of a house that has the windows blown out. And I'm thinking maybe it was a tornado or vandalism, and maybe
It
Lincoln.
was that big explosion in Mount Pulaski that did that back in
Yeah.
'57.
Yeah. Well, this was earlier than that, because I remember Mrs. Agerman said that she had to dress her son on the cistern cover because there was glass everywhere. And he's younger than I am, so. And then this is a picture of my dad, for those who knew him. And he probably put his camera on timer and took it himself, and then developed, did the accenting around there. So I was just hoping for somebody to help me identify who those people were. So they said that Mr. Gossett's going to be 100 pretty soon, so I wouldn't
He
blame
might be
you.
the one to talk to,
Bill Gossett might
Yeah.
know.
if he knows
Sooner the
everything.
better.
He idolizes my dad, too. He's always telling me stories.
Well, we've had an exciting program so far with the videos, but I learned a new thing about my camera while we're doing this, is that it only records for 23 minutes and then shuts off. So we didn't get all of the items videoed, but fortunately I asked folks to share their items with me so that I could get photographs of them, and we can fill in with the items that weren't in the video. So here you're seeing the quilt, the backside of the quilt that Diane Osborne was showing, and you can see the pattern of the quilt. And here is the patch sewn into it that documents when it was made, from who it was given, and to whom it was given. These glass items are from Diane Farmer, and they are what you would be considered, I suppose, folk glass art. He worked at the bottle factory in Lincoln, and made these during his time there. She also had a photograph of a glass top table that she had inherited, but I didn't get that photograph. Here's a different view of those glass pieces. And Gary was in the video, and here are the documents that he provided. Gary Fries is his name, and here we have his grandfather's confirmation certificate and a marriage record from a church. And Curtis Fox was showing his, I don't think he was in the video, showing his cigarette lighter from his father's war days, World War II. His father was a doctor and posted to India and Burma, and this particular item has a coin on it. The front of the coin is on one side of the lighter, and the back of the coin is on the other side of the lighter. It's kind of a cool keepsake. I don't know how they cut that coin in half so that you had the obverse on one side and the reverse on the other side. And here's Joanne Marlin showing that her glass plate that her grandparents received at their wedding for a wedding gift in 1880. And here's a close-up of it showing that the image on the plate is actually a scene of the Last Supper. Ruby Bartman Nimke brought 2 or 3 items. One is the clock case you see in front of her. It's containing a doll. And I thought it was a rather clever way to display the doll and keep it clean and be able to see it at the same time. And a pillow that her parents received or got when she went to when they went to the World's Fair in 1933. Emmy Alexander brought in quite a few photographs from her father's photographic collection. Some houses. I think one was a cottage at Chagua, and many actually from Lincoln Lakes. And here are 3 of those. Early days of Lincoln Lakes. John Dirtle of Tazewell County, and he's with the Genealogy and Historical Society up there, brought in a collection of ceramic buttons that he inherited from an ancestor. And then here are the portrait buttons, buttons, and some scenery and another portrait button. They're rather cool things to see. The lady is Marge Gerke Medina, is opening up a little apple, and inside the apple is a very tiny tea set. She also brought along another item, a working tin toy of a ballerina dancing, and pull a key out of it, and it powers it up, tightens the springs, and she dances. And here she is with the pull pin to. Okay, and this is Debbie Aper, and Debbie brought with her a collection of greeting cards that were sent between her grandparents when they were courting back in the early 1900s. And the collection of greeting cards included these three. I like those old cards. We've got a collection similar to that here at the house. Galen Wickline shared things from his father, and it turned out that his father was posted to area near Kurt Fox's father in India and in that area during World War II. And he had samples that his father brought back of Chinese writing and the service records and some money from India. The two at the top you can see are the Japanese government, which meant that they either were in that area or had it ready to go if they ever got into India. And then two on the bottom are 10 rupee bills that were actually from India. And Bill Donath brought in several small items. One was a photo brooch of his great-grandfather, Henry Donath, that belonged to his great-grandmother, Magdalena Donath, and she wore it after he passed away in 1893. Another type of pin is a rhinestone pin that resembles the Halley's Comet. So that dates it to about 1910. That's when the comet came back. And we have a lapel button from World War I for Henry Donath, who was the son of Henry and Magdalena. And he was in 147th Artillery, served in France. And this key and the fob for it is for the Improved Order of the Red Men. And J.A. Donath is my grandfather, Joseph Donath. And it's the Kickapoo tribe of 188 from Lincoln, Illinois. And this meant that he at one time was an officer with that group. And then I realized I had an accompanying certificate for that. And it's called the Past Sacum's Credential. Sacum being the lead person of the group, kind of like our presidents of organizations today. And got online and looked up it a little bit to see if I could figure out what this date was they had on here. And it turned out to be about 1920. But they had their own calendar and the way they did things, and you had to translate it. Well, we had a pretty good evening. We enjoyed ourselves. We had a lot of fun looking at these things. And if you want to come to our meetings, they're always on Monday evening at 6:30. That's the third Monday of the month, every month but December. So we enjoy having company at these meetings, so put that on your calendar. And we'll talk to you the next time.